Breaking. Diddy's trial has begun today. Diddy's trial has officially begun today. So we'll find out if Justin Bieber's in it, if Cuba Gooding Jr.'s in it, if Usher's in it. We're supposed to find out everything under the sun because we already know that from social media, Diddy is guilty as sin. Because like they said, Diddy done it. All right? Sit back, enjoy the ride. This is how we're going to begin. Hit the like button as you come in. Let's keep the party moving. All right? All right, you know what it is. Unique Mecca audio, man. We're here. We're going to play this. We got Jesse Weber in the house. He's going to let it be known how they do it over at Law&Crime. They had someone that was actually in the courtroom today with Diddy. So we're going to find out exactly how it played out. So let's play this tape and we're going to get the commentary. We're going to break it down from a hood point of view.
It's official. We're here. The start of United States versus Sean P. Diddy Combs. What began with his arrest in September of 2024, an indictment on federal sex crimes charges, now brings us to May 5th, 2025, the start of his trial, the start of jury selection, to be more precise. Can't believe we're here. I've said it before. I've said it again. The idea of this going to trial in under a year from his arrest and indictment at the federal level, very, very rare. But he has been speeding his way towards trial, wants his day in court, and now we are here. So this case has changed a lot, too, since September, by the way. Over the last several months, his indictment has been amended. We're now at his third superseding indictment, where he's facing 5 counts. Count 1, racketeering conspiracy. So that's that Combs and others allegedly created a criminal enterprise using the resources and personnel of his multifaceted business empire, where he allegedly abused, threatened, and coerced women to fulfill his sexual desires, including engaging in prolonged or extensive or elaborate sexual performances, sometimes known as freak-offs.
So basically, his sex life is on trial. Can we agree to that or we disagree to that? Because that's what I'm hearing. What are you hearing? Put it in the comments.
Included sex workers. They're the underlying predicate acts that need to be proved. At least 2 need to be proved in order.
Now, let me explain what predicate acts are so you understand, because that's essential to the case. So let's take the ride. We're going to take the ride. Now, a predicate act is something that you did in furtherance of the crime, equivalent to an overt act. An overt act can be a predicate. A predicate is an actual count in the indictment. An overt act is just an overt act or action that happened during the course of the conspiracy, but you're not charged with that. But what that does is it paints a picture of your bad deeds. You understand what I'm saying? So now, that's the predicates. You have to be found guilty of at least 2 predicates. And for a RICO, it has to carry 306, a year and a day, they call it. A year and a day, you could go up north in the state system because you have that year and a day. Anything under a day, you stay in the county jail. So that's where that goes. All right. So now we know what a predicate act is, and they got to prove 2 predicate acts in order to find Puff Daddy guilty of this crime. And we're going to list the predicate acts in a few, but we're going to turn the mic over to Mr. Jesse Weber right now. See how I look real professional.
To get the racketeering charge, these underlying crimes that make up the larger pattern of criminal racketeering activity. So whether that be kidnapping, forced labor, arson, sex trafficking. And speaking of which, counts 2 and 4 are sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion of victims 1 and 2, namely that Combs intentionally harbored, transported, enticed these alleged victims to cause them to engage in commercial sex acts using force.
basically they saying that he flashed his wealth, showed them a couple of dollars. They saw a couple of dollars and decided to do a couple of tricks. You know what I mean? And now they're saying that the dollars made him do the tricks and he manipulated them by flashing the dollars. Do you think that that should be a crime? Put it in the comments. I hope you understood. If not, rewind this mother.
Force, fraud, or coercion. Commercial sex acts, meaning something of value was exchanged or promised. Counts 3 and 5, transportation to engage in prostitution, namely that Combs allegedly transported victims and commercial sex workers for purposes of sex work, for purpose.
That's like he's having a party in Cancun and he got 10 girls in 10 different states and he send them all a ticket so they could attend the party in Cancun so that his joint look official. He got these beautiful girls from 10 different states, and then now that's ex-trafficking. Do you agree with that? Or do you think it should be or shouldn't be? Put in the comments. We just making you think over here at Unique Mecca Audio. You pay for a girl's ticket to come and see you, spend time, smash, whatever you do. She go home and now it's ex-trafficking. Do you understand that, y'all? Okay, let's keep it moving.
Purposes of prostitution. And now we need a panel of 12 jurors with potentially 6 alternates to sit and hear this case in Manhattan federal court. And it's being reported that 150 potential jurors are being brought in. So what did day 1 of jury selection look like in Sean Combs' criminal case?
And y'all, could we get the like buttons up? Let's start real early, man. Could we get the like buttons up? Please hit the like button.
Well, since there are no cameras allowed in federal court, we have with us our very own eyes and ears about what happened in that courtroom today. Law and Crimes reporter Elizabeth Milner was there. Elizabeth, so good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jesse.
So I'm going to start with the question I always ask you. How did Diddy look? What was he wearing? And who was with him?
Well, today was a lot different, obviously, because it's day 1 of jury selection, or to some, they consider it day 1 of the trial. So Diddy looked completely different from his pretrial hearing in that he wasn't wearing the standard issue khaki tan jumpsuit provided by MDC. Instead, he looked a lot different. And as we know from the last judge's order that was made last week, Diddy is allowed to wear normal attire, but he looked a little similar to what I kind of presumed to be a choir boy. So he came in with a blue pullover sweater. He had a white collared shirt. He had navy slacks. Couldn't get a look at his shoes, but of course we know from the judge's order that he is not allowed to have laces on those shoes. So it's unclear if he had just shoes with no laces, wearing loafers. Couldn't see from where I was inside the gallery because I was even lucky to get inside that courtroom today, because let me tell you, Jesse, it is inundated with so much press from honestly around the world. This is not just a nationwide case. There are international outlets out here as well too, trying to get inside that courtroom, trying to get a peek at Diddy. And I thankfully was one of the lucky few to get inside, because I think they were only allowing about 10 or 15 people from the press, because the rest had to be filled with a lot of prospective jurors. So the side where normally the defense's side sits or normally the family sits, instead that entire side was empty, at least for the first half of court today, mainly because we had to put in all those jurors. And I know we're going to talk about that more in a second. But as far as Diddy goes today, his demeanor seemed upbeat at first, but then there was a moment, I think it was a little bit before the lunch break, where Diddy kept having to go, take some restroom breaks in between the prospective jurors' questions and that type of sort. And then he uttered something that I found to be pretty astounding given how confident and upbeat he appeared. He said, "Your Honor, I'm a little nervous," which is something that finally you kind of see the mask slip off a little bit, where it's like Diddy is finally admitting the weight is kind of coming on to him as far as having to go to trial for these federal charges that he's facing.
This is what I heard. I don't know what you heard, right? I heard Diddy told the judge, "Yo, judge, I'm a little nervous. I keep pissing on myself. Give me some piss breaks. Whatever, bathroom breaks." You know what I mean? I've been in that situation where you ain't even got to pee, but you just feel like you got to pee, like it's all coming out. And you make them stop the trial, take you in the back, take you to the bullpen, handcuffed, shackled, go through all this and go through the door, get to the bathroom, and you stand there and just a drip come out, pop. That's that nervous drip. Diddy having that nervous drip right now. They said he done had to stop the trial a few times for to have bathroom break. Yo, Diddy about to shit on himself, man. That's really what's happening. I'm just keeping it 100. This the phase where if you're a man, you control your bowels. You know what I mean? If Diddy a man, he control the bowels and he just urinate. If not, he gonna go in the back and defecate on himself, and every 5 minutes he's gonna come out. They might have to give Diddy a diaper to go out in the trial. You think they might give Diddy a diaper? If Diddy keep pulling these bathroom runs because he's scared to death, right? Here's a guy that was a millionaire. Cause we ride, we ride. We having a lie, right? Here's a guy that's a billionaire. He's jet setting across the country with the most beautiful women. He's flashing money, jewels, everything. He's getting everything he wanted. He just knows it's fully legal. And then they swoop in and put him in a little cage like what they had Unique Mecca audio win and said, now you got to fight for your freedom because we want you to take the cell that Unique just left. And he's like, well, hold up. I'm just partying. And they're like, yeah, that's the point. You're partying without us. You're spending all this money, you're flossing on us, you're suing liquor companies, you're just out of control, Diddy. Diddy, you're out of control. You're way out of control. This is what they told him, you know what I mean? So we're gonna park you, you know what I mean? And try and, scare the crap out of you. That's like, we ride. That's like it was a dude in California told me this one, right? He said, yo, I met this girl. She was so fine, man. I'm talking to her, man. And as I'm talking to her, it felt like I was in the middle of a 5-lane highway and tractor trailers is coming from both angles and they both go by and the wind push you in both angles and you just, woo, you know what I mean? That's what Diddy feel like right now. He feel like woo on himself. You know what I mean? So he calls for a few breaks. Why do you think Diddy's calling for these pee breaks? Somebody put it in the comments.
Facing, of course, that being 5 federal charges that he's facing, which could carry, if he is sentenced or if he is convicted on these charges, could carry decades in prison. So it's a lot of weight on his shoulders. And we've kind of presumed that as well, too, because obviously, since he's been incarcerated, his hair has been great. He did come in today. His face wasn't completely shaven, so his goatee was a little white as well, too. But when he had first come into the courtroom, he did what he usually does. He hugged all of his attorneys. He looked outside or he looked into the gallery to see who was there as far as family goes. Unfortunately, no immediate family was inside the courtroom today. But again, we have 2 more months to go at trial, so it's likely that they'll be here for opening statements. But that's, unclear as far as what family members will be there at what times, that type of sort. But as far as today inside the courtroom, it was really that associate or member of his entourage who, again, was wearing that free puff hat, that free puff sweatshirt. But instead, he had to flip it inside out, as we probably presumed, because those prospective jurors are going to be coming into that same courtroom where we're sitting as the press, where his associates are sitting. So he had to turn that shirt inside out. And what I did also spot was Justin Combs's brother inside the courtroom too. Now, with Justin Combs's brother, we have to remember that he is not Diddy's son. However, it's somebody who has been very who Diddy is obviously very familiar with, that being his son's other brother from a different relationship, because it's a tangled family web as far as everything goes with the family and everything like that. But while Justin Combs wasn't inside the courtroom, his brother was. And I think Diddy kind of looked at both of those 2 associates and then Justin Combs' brother kind of as support, kind of as like a nice presence to be inside the courtroom, because I do think he relies a lot on the support of his family and of his loved ones to be inside that courtroom. But again, we still have 2 more months of trial, so I assume his mother, his daughter, maybe possibly his daughters, but at least bare minimum his sons will be inside that courtroom. If they'll be there every day, that's a wait and see, but I'm sure for opening statements they definitely will be.
And I got to say, I'm not surprised. If he meant it, he's nervous. Look, it's not only decades. He could potentially face life in prison if he's convicted of the most serious charge. And look, his defense team was pushing forward to get this in front of a jury as soon as possible. It seems they feel confident in getting an acquittal here or putting the prosecution's feet to the fire. I want to move on to a little bit about what happened today. You and I had spoken earlier today about who was there for him. Attorneys there for him. Mark Garagos now there is in a more of a consultant role. So you have the attorneys, you have the prosecutors in court. I want to talk about the jury. Okay, so it's my understanding that prospective jurors came in last week. They filled out these questionnaires. And based on their responses, that number is going to be ultimately whittled down to the jurors who were selected in this case. So first, before we even get into the ins and outs of what jurors said in court,
get them likes up, get them likes up. We need them likes up.
Of what were some of the questions that these jurors were asked in their questionnaires, because that became a big focus of their today, what their responses were. So, and I know, and by the way, just to let everybody know, a little while ago, the court actually released preliminary instructions in this case and some of those questions too, and maybe we'll put it up. But Elizabeth, you give us a general brief idea about what were some of the questions they were asked.
Well, some of the questions included just people and places, whether or not there was a whole like laundry list of celebrities and whether or not these prospective jurors were familiar with them. You know, they range from Kanye West to Michael B. Jordan to Young Miami to Dallas Austin, who's a music producer, to Harv Pierre, who actually was named as one of the defendants in one of Diddy's civil suits. And so prospective jurors were asked who they knew, and most of them were very.
Who do you think is going to show up to this trial? Who do you think is going to show up to this trial out of all the names they said and the names y'all know? Who do you think is going to show up to this trial? Somebody let me know. Who you think going to show up?
Honest about their answering. They were like, you know what, I don't know them personally, but I do recognize, for example, Michael B. Jordan from movies. Obviously, Sinners is very popular right now. So, of course.
You think Michael B. Jordan would show up?
That is probably going to be the name most were able to answer yes or no to. But I was kind of surprised at how many people didn't know of these like laundry lists of popular celebrities, especially when you have names like Kanye West on there, especially when you have names like, you know, Michael B. Jordan, that type of sort. But there were some prospective jurors who did not or who were not familiar with these certain people. Now, as far as places goes, I don't know the full extent of what was asked as far as places goes, but there was this one juror who did kind of talk about a hotel, the Essex House Hotel, that was on the list of places that prospective jurors were asked about. And this juror in particular, he just said, you know, he had worked at this particular hotel sometime last year and all of that sort. Now, as far as some of the other questions that were asked, you know, they were asked simple questions as far as, do you know any additional information about this case? Do you have any training in addictive treatment, domestic violence, sexual abuse? Do you have any views about prosecutors or law enforcement? Have you been involved in legal issues such as a lawsuit, such as a criminal case? Have you been a victim of a crime? Do you have feelings about law enforcement, hip hop artists, witnesses testifying under immunity, witnesses also testifying under a pseudonym? And is there any reason that you wouldn't be able to serve as a prospective juror? Now, some of these questions, especially when it comes to like legal issues, criminal issues, surprisingly, a lot of people were very forthcoming, whether it be that they were in a DUI accident, that being that they were the victim of a DUI accident. One woman had talked about how she stole a wand from Harry Potter World.
Yeah.
A lot of these jurors have been very transparent as far as being honest about some of the legal issues that they've dealt with in their past.
I definitely want to get into all that for sure. And by the way, just before I get into a little bit more of the celebrity aspect, so I understand the judge came in, brought the jurors in, read them preliminary instructions. And just so everybody knows what we're dealing with, I'm reading from this document that was released. You know, don't do any research on this case. Don't discuss your questions and answers of the case with anyone or until further instructed by the court. But listen to the schedule. Potential jurors will be called back for further questioning and jury selection from Monday, May 5th through Friday, May 9th. Your availability during that week will be required. The trial will commence on Monday, May 12th, 2025. That's again, assuming they can get a jury by that time. This trial is expected to last about 8 weeks. And generally, trial will be held 5 days per week, Monday through Friday. During the first week of trial, Monday, May 12th, 2025 through Friday, May 16th, 2025, trial will be held from 9:30 a.m. until 5 p.m. After the first week, trial will be held from 9:30 a.m. until 3 p.m. Trial will not be held on Friday, May 23rd, Monday, May 26th, Thursday, June 19th, Friday, July 4th. These are all the holidays. But going back to the celebrities for a second, I found it very interesting that the jurors were asked, you know, is there anybody on this list that you know? Michael B. Jordan, Kid Cudi, who you and I both know, became a component in Cassie Ventura's lawsuit. We believe Cassie's going to be a part of this case, probably victim one. The allegation is that she had a romantic relationship with him, that Sean Combs may have blown up his car at one point. I didn't know what the connection of Mike Myers, the actor, I didn't know what the connection Michael B. Jordan might be. Kanye West, I mean, as far as I know, Elizabeth, Kanye West had been talking to Sean Combs in jail, maybe called him up. I'm surprised by some of these names. And also, I mean, if you have any more context about what their connection could be to the discussion about the case, but is it my understanding that Kim Porter, his ex, Sean Combs' ex, mother of his children, some of his children, and who died several years ago, she may play a role in this case as well?
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring up. Now, Michael Myers, not 100% sure as far as what his kind of connection is and why his name was even on that list. But as far as Michael B. Jordan, I thought about it for a second, and it kind of makes sense possibly why Michael B. Jordan. And that's that they kind of share a common ex, him, Sean Combs, and Michael B. Jordan. That's Lori Harvey. Now, Lori Harvey dated Sean Combs for a brief period a few years ago. And then, as we know, or maybe as people know from Instagram, Michael B. Jordan and Lori Harvey went on to have like a years-long relationship after the fact. Now, that's as far as I know is probably what the connection would be as to why Michael B. Jordan specifically was on that.
So they trying to say that they calling P. Diddy's ex new, possibly scorned lover, Michael B. Jordan, to testify at Diddy's trial for his life. That's what I heard from that. What did you hear from that? While y'all think about that, I'm going to play the intro. Let's get these likes up. Let's get the party started. Get them likes up, get them likes up, get them likes up. Now's your time to get them likes up. All right, let's get them likes up.
List, but there were other famous names on that list as well too. You know, you had Aubrey O'Day, you had Don Richard, you had, you know, I go back to like faces like, or names like Harp Pierre, who used to be president of Bad Boy Records. And as far as Kim Porter specifically, now she was brought up when one of the prospective jurors was kind of talking about her role as a chief marketing officer for a local or for a big book publishing company. And I bring that up specifically because apparently there is going to be a memoir that's going to be coming out later this fall. And that memoir is going to be Al B. Shore's memoir. And he is a very important kind of central figure a little bit in Diddy's life. And I say that because he is the biological father of Quincy Brown, who Diddy adopted. Diddy, along with Kim Porter, because Kim Porter is Quincy Brown's biological mother. And that's why I say there's such a tangle web when it comes to the Combs / Al B. Shore family / you know, Justin Combs' family as well too. And so that was kind of,
why are they trying to make that sound like a bad thing when Sean Diddy Combs took in his lover's son that was by another man and raised him like he was his own? Is how I know the story to be. If y'all know the story to be anything different, put it in the comments. Because they saying that it's a twisted web. I mean, how many times people get with somebody that already have kids and now they raise the kids as if they're own? That's what we do as men, if we love a woman. So they're trying to make it sound like Diddy's in this twisted web because Kim had this baby, Christian Brown, by somebody else, and Diddy took care of it, and it's the half brother to this brother and that brother and half of this. Come on, man.
the context as far as why Kim Porter and even Al B. Shore were brought up, in that a prospective juror did work at a local or at a publishing company. I think it was Simon and Schuster. And she was talking about how she had viewed a press release about this memoir that's, again, going to be coming out called Do You Believe Me? And it's pretty interesting, too, because the ties of that, in a sense, are also kind of related to the documentaries. Now, this one, I believe it's the Peacock documentary as opposed to the HBO documentary, and that Al B. Shore has made some allegations that have, come from Diddy's team. They have come back and they have, said these allegations aren't true when it comes to allegations that somehow, some way Diddy was involved in Kim Porter's death. Now, as far as whether or not this stuff is going to be admitted into trial, that's unclear right now. But It was interesting, kind of the government's point of the case, because they said that they don't really believe that Kim Porter and Al B. Shore will really be mentioned in the trial, whereas the defense, they seem pretty adamant that both of those names will be mentioned in the trial. So again, we still have 2 months. We don't know what all the government has up their sleeves, but it'll be interesting to see kind of how the defense comes and counters that, and how all this information that is brought in, some of these documentaries and these podcasts, because it seems that some of the figures that were in these documentaries, according to the government, will also be testifying as witnesses in this case. So it seems like you're kind of just having a little cross.
Do you think that's fair that people that's going to testify, they allow them to go on Tubi and do TMZ, and then after they tell their story to the world from their version, and they come in and then they tell the story to the jury? Do you think that makes sense to you? Put it in the comments.
Pattern above all boards when it comes to what's going on, and how some of these people in Diddy's lives who have appeared on these documentaries will appear inside that courtroom as well, too.
So let's go back to the idea of the jurors having a legal history, whether it's criminal history, whether it's a filing lawsuits. You got to tell me what you learned. And please, just to reiterate one more time for our audience, because it struck me, you had a potential juror who stole a wand.
She was probably one of my favorite prospective jurors, I'm not going to lie, that I saw inside that courtroom. And she was interesting. She was a 30-year-old woman. She had talked about how she could be fair and impartial when it comes to this case. She said as far as the list of people and places, she only knew about 2 celebrities on that list. But she was interesting because she said she had a concert or a conference with unrefundable tickets, but then said she could make it work if she were to be selected as part of this juror. But again, she said she could be fair and impartial. She understands that she can't talk about this case with her sister-in-law, who, by the way, she had said in open court that her sister-in-law is a therapist. She had previous training as a teacher to deal with sexual harassment, something that we saw a lot from these jurors talking about, whether or not their job training actually required them to deal with some levels of sexual harassment, that being a training, that being a course, some type of thing. And then she said she had a friend who was a police officer. But as far as her stealing the wand from Harry Potter World, that was obviously brought up in open court, and she was very honest about it. Honestly, when the judge asked her, what did you steal? And she said a wand, there was an audible chuckle inside that courtroom. But pretty much she wasn't like convicted of a crime or anything like that. She had to pay a fine. She was prohibited actually from going to Harry Potter World and Universal Studios in Florida for about a year. So by this time, it looks like she can actually go back there again. But she made another interesting comment whenever she was being questioned by the judge, and that she had said that and again, I have to kind of commend some of these jurors for being just very honest and inside that courtroom today. But, when asked about social media posts and if she made posts about the case, she didn't say she made a post about the case in particular, but instead she said she liked to post about the case. Now, she said it was kind of some comedian making a joke about the baby oil, and she was adamant inside that courtroom today that she found it pretty funny, which is, I couldn't see Diddy's face whenever the baby oil or anything like that was mentioned, but he sat there kind of taking it all in. From what I could see from him, he kind of had no reaction from what I saw, but she was pretty adamant that the post that she saw had to do with baby oil and had to do with Diddy, and she just liked it because, as she says, it was funny. And the judge said that she will proceed as a potential juror in this case.
Yeah, and I saw that there was another juror. By the way, maybe she stole the Elder Wand because it might be excusable, right? It's the most powerful wand in the Harry Potter world. Everybody should know that. But anyway, side note. But I know there was another juror that sued the Port Authority for an injury that hurt their back on an escalator. They ended up settling that. There was also a question about insurance fraud. You had another juror who says that their uncle was charged with raping someone else, another family member. So it's interesting to hear about their past legal connections. But talk to me now about what did the jurors say about their exposure to the case? So other than the fact they might know celebrities or places, talk to me about what they've seen about the case, whether that was documentaries, whether or not that was evidence that has been released so far in this case. What did we learn about what the jurors' exposure to the Sean Diddy Combs criminal case has been so far?
Yeah, it seemed like it really kind of varied. Some people have seen the documentary, that either being on HBO, The Fall of Diddy, or particular didn't have anything to do with the documentary or anything like that. She was just pretty much a photo producer, so she had no kind of ties into the documentary or anything like that. But it seems like a lot of people were kind of familiar with the case, whether it be them seeing the CNN video, which obviously we'll see in trial, the raw version or whatever they were able to piece together, the government was, and showing that in real time, or real speed, I should say. Some people again were familiar with the documentary. Others were familiar just by his arrest. Now, whether or not they knew he had been detained this entire time, that part was a little bit unclear. But as far as the exposure to the case, a lot of people, and I say a lot of people, actually, it kind of just varied, really. Like some people were in the know about it, others weren't so much. But for the most part, there weren't too many who said that they couldn't be fair and impartial just because they, for example, saw the CNN video. One prospective juror said that she had empathy, but she said that she could also be able to kind of listen to the facts, listen to the evidence, and then some even saying that, maybe it doesn't show the entire picture and all of that sort. And so, I was actually kind of surprised at how many people were familiar with this case, given that they might have to become prospective jurors now.
And by the way, real quick, Elizabeth, certain jurors, and I'm going to ask you about this, is they were asked about whether or not they were sexually assaulted or harassed, either them or somebody close to them. And talk to me about what you learned of their responses. And also, did they have to provide that information in a separate room for privacy reasons? Because obviously talking about sensitive material like this in front of an entire courtroom of people could be difficult. What safeguards were put in place by the court to ask those questions? And from what you heard, what were some of the responses regarding their experience with sexual assault or harassment of any kind?
So as far as some of those really personal questions, I was honestly surprised at how many were forthcoming about talking about it in open court. The press is inside that courtroom. A bunch of attorneys are inside that courtroom, either for the government or for the defense. There are some family members in there. So I was surprised at how many people were forthcoming about talking about either previous sexual abuse. Some talked about molestation. Others talked about being fondled by somebody who was older than them when they were teenagers. So these very sensitive topics. But then there was one juror who, did take it up at a sidebar. And kind of how that works is the judge will ask the question, have you had any prior experience with sexual abuse? And do you feel comfortable talking about this, or would you prefer to do it in a more private manner? So instead of taking them even outside of the courtroom or even into the judge's chambers or anything like that, what they all did, well, not all of them, it's too many lawyers for all of them to kind of rush up there. But what they did was 2 lawyers from each side. So it's going to be 2 people from the defense, 2 people from the government, the court reporter, the judge, and I think the judge's clerk was in that kind of huddle as well too. And they just kind of spoke honestly and candidly while there's kind of this static going on in the courtroom. But the thing is that Diddy himself can kind of see the live transcript of what is being talked about from this prospective juror. So although we as the press can't hear what they are talking about or what these answers are, Diddy can kind of see a live transcription of it from inside, or not from inside, but from at the defense table, where there's kind of a big computer set up and all the live transcriptions kind of going through that. So he can see the answers. So that kind of took care of the logistical issue, because at first they were talking about kind of sealing the answers, then kind of having it separate. And it would be too much, that it would take up too much time. But it seems like the method at which they're going is working out for both sides. They go up, it doesn't take maybe more than about 2 minutes or so. They come back down. The judge will either keep the juror or dismiss the juror. And in this particular case, this juror who went over to the sidebar, she was dismissed for cause. And so that's kind of how they were able to kind of work around this entire situation. And it seems to be going pretty smoothly from both ends. I don't see too many complaints from either side on how this process is really going.
Let me add a little bit of legal context to that. So first of all, I would imagine that Combs has a right to see the transcript, right? Sixth Amendment right, public trial, due process right. So he has an ability to be there during the jury selection process in his own criminal case. It is interesting when we talk about this jury selection process, because we're not saying jurors were selected today to officially be on the trial. They've moved, or certain jurors have moved through the first stage of the process. Now, they can be stricken for cause. So a specific reason why they cannot serve on this jury, a legitimate reason. Now, that's different from later on, when both sides, generally speaking, the prosecution and the defense, will have the option to put forward preemptory challenges. So both sides are typically granted a certain number of preemptory challenges where they can strike a potential juror without even providing a reason. And that's very advantageous for both the prosecution and the defense. But Elizabeth, moving on from today so far, based on Judge Subramanian, who's the first guard to determine whether or not a juror can be stricken for cause, generally speaking, what did you make of his decision-making today? I mean, did he excuse a lot of jurors? Did he excuse maybe more jurors that were favored by the defense over the prosecution? Because I'll tell you, I know there was one juror, for example, who had apparently been watching the HBO documentary on Diddy. The prosecution was concerned about this juror, and the defense wasn't concerned, but the judge ended up excluding that juror nonetheless. So from what you could see on day one, were there a lot of jurors excused? Did it seem that more of the defense's preferences for jurors were excused, maybe more of the prosecution's? And where are we right now? I mean, do you believe that we're actually going to get a jury seated in a week?
Do you think that Diddy could get a fair trial with all of this going on? Call in, the numbers on the screen. Do you believe that Diddy could actually get a fair trial with everything going on? Call in, let me know. The lines is open.
I kind of hold my breath a little bit on whether or not we'll actually seat an entire jury this week, but we'll see. You never know what can happen. I'm still in shock that we're even about to go on trial next week. So, don't take my word for it necessarily. But as far as the judge kind of dismissing jurors or keeping jurors, I was surprised at the amount of jurors that he kind of held on to today. To your point,
let's
Jesse,
get them likes up.
About this one juror, who had seen the documentary, or even one juror I found interesting. She was the one with the ocular migraine. She says it happens only about a few times a year. She says she needs like about 20-30 minutes. And I was kind of surprised that the judge had kept her on because, she was also the one to kind of talk about how a dentist who she had worked under was previously inappropriate with her when she was a teenager and all of that sort. And yet the judge decided to keep her on. And there was one moment that Diddy, I could tell, wasn't too fond of this particular juror. I shouldn't say too fond, but you could tell that he didn't seem like he had necessarily wanted her as a part of the juror. And that was that HBO photo producer. And so she had talked about, she also.
All right, hold up, caller. What's up? Where you calling from? And what's your name?
Brooklyn, New York.
All right. Didn't hear you.
Yes. I feel he cannot get a fair trial.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning wrong or right, I'm not sure of the situation. But to me, I think the odds are stacked against him. Everyone, I've never been to jail, never dated a man that's been in jail. But however, just,
Hold on. What did you just say? Hold on. Did you just say you never dated a man that been to jail?
No.
Oh, what did you just say about a man that been to jail?
I said I never, but I said just watching, just being 51 and just being around the era of Diddy and everything. And, Biggie, I'm 51. I think the odds are stacked against him. I just feel it's like a witch hunt on him. Not saying he innocent, I don't know. But it's not good. I just think they're going to take everything out on him. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Y'all put in the comments. Y'all agree with what she's saying or disagree? Put in the comments or call in.
I just feel like it's like they're going to take all the anger, the women, and it's all women, what's that, prosecutors or whatever. I just feel, Diddy, I don't know if he did bad, then he got to pay the price. But I just think he going to get a raw deal.
Okay, thank you, caller. Next caller.
Okay, have a good.
All right, sorry about that, sis. Yo, where you calling from? You're being recorded. Name, all that.
Memphis.
Huh?
Memphis.
All right. What's your issue?
I'm just calling because I feel like Diddy, he gonna get a fair trial, but anybody that do the things that he done, especially putting his hand on his mama, he deserves everything he get. Simple and plain.
Oh, so you believe he put his hands on his mama?
Yes.
Okay. Why do you believe that? Did you see proof of that? I'm just asking because I like to see it.
But it's been a lot of reports about it.
A lot of people have been talking about it, so that makes it true that he did put his hands on his mama.
It don't, but if he doing all the other things he did, he done it.
See, they got a saying when I went to trial, right? My case was Richardson versus United States is what I went up there on the Eddie Richardson vice lord out of Chicago. And that's exactly what the Supreme Court said, that you can't just keep throwing a bunch of acts at a person, at the jury, because the jury is going to believe that where there's smoke, there's fire. And it sounds like you're saying that they're throwing so much stuff at them that it got to be true. Something got to be true. Is that the way y'all feel? Put it in the comments. And somebody call in, let me know. Is that what you're saying, caller?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure it was in your words so they understood what you were saying. Thank you, sis.
All right. Okay.
All right. All right, caller. Where you calling from? Your name and all that. You being recorded.
Hey, Michigan, Unique, what's up?
How you doing?
Hey, every time it's TV line.
Mm-hmm.
You got me a little close out there. Turn the phone. Hey, I follow a lot of the news.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that he's going to get a fair trial, but I think it is going to be accepted as a fair trial.
That's
Her
deep.
name's Teresa.
Excuse me?
Yeah,
Your name is Teresa, you said?
it is. It is.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Teresa. You know, see, that's for everybody saying the same thing. They don't think Diddy's going to get a fair trial. Call in if you think he's going to get a fair trial or what you got to say about this. Let's keep this moving. All right.
Kind of talked about, her previous history when it came to molestation in her family. It was by a cousin and it was done to her and her sister. She says she can feel empathy, but also be fair and impartial. But she did particularly point out that she called the CNN video disturbing and unsettling to watch. But she said that she could listen to all of the facts. And she was also the one who kind of had talked about, the water cooler talk at the office, mainly about Diddy and his case, that type of sort. But the defense did bring up that HBO documentary. But the government said that she shouldn't be excused. And so it seems like for now, she'll be staying on as a prospective juror. But as far as just other jurors that were released, they were released either because they had time constraints. One juror, he just started a job like last week. So him being tied to a 2-month trial, the judge was like, okay, we're going to dismiss you and you're good to go. The other juror that was brought in for that sequestered question, but in the form of a sidebar in open court, that type of thing, she was excused for cause. Then the last juror I was in before I had to come out and do the hit with you, she was kind of talking about how she had watched the documentary, but she kind of had a lot of long pauses when the judge would ask her follow-up questions just about whether or not she could be fair and impartial.
Do you think they could be fair and impartial? Put it in the comments.
When particularly or possibly you could see one of the people who did, either analysis or did speak to the documentary, that they could possibly be the ones to testify. And when the judge asked her, can you put away the documentary and actually listen to the facts of the case and listen to this witness testimony in the trial, she kind of had these long pauses and that sort. And so the government was just like, Your Honor, I'm a little worried about this. The defense, they kind of agreed. And so she was another one who was going to be dismissed for cause and that type of sort. But as far as the amount of dismissals over the ones that are being kept, it looks like the ones that are being kept is kind of outnumbering that. So what will that mean for tomorrow when possibly some of them either have to return and then that new batch is coming in as well too, because they're trying to guesstimate around a little more than 50 a day. And so that's a lot of prospective jurors in the potential pool. But really quickly, Jesse, I kind of want to talk about just the demographics of these prospective jurors that I saw inside the courtroom. I was honestly surprised at how diverse this group was. I didn't see a lot of younger faces, or maybe, they possibly were, but I couldn't tell. But it didn't seem like there was any type of issue getting a diverse juror or prospective jurors or anything like that. Again, they come from all different walks of life. They are all different ages, all different races. I will say I didn't see as many white men prospective jurors today, but that could be completely different for tomorrow. But I was pretty surprised at how diverse everyone is, because when I go into that courtroom, I'm just seeing a bunch of lawyers, I'm seeing Diddy, I'm seeing other members of the press, but really you could tell that these were the people of New York. These were the people who are going to ultimately have to decide and judge whether or not Diddy is guilty of the charges that he faces or whether he's not. So we'll see what all happens with that. But again, a very, very diverse pool of jurors there, or prospective jurors.
And let me tell you, this is not an easy case to sit on.
It's definitely not an easy case to sit on. All right. Yo, you're being recorded. Name, where you calling from?
This Rocco from Philly.
What up, Rocco?
Yeah, what goes around. He did Sean dirty, man. Europe people should stand up about that. Like, that's corny. I like P. Diddy.
But because he did Sean dirty, he should go to jail for the rest of his life, whether he's guilty or not.
No, but you're snitch. You don't like snitches, man. I've been following you since you got out of jail. You don't like snitches, man. You're a snitch.
Okay. How did he snitch? Let me hear that.
He snitched on Sean. He's testified against Sean.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, but it's cool that he did what he did. You know, I like P. Diddy. I'm a fan. I still listen to him. But New York people, Philly people, we different, man. We're a little different.
All right. All right. Thanks for calling me. Gladys Kelly.
It's cool for you to endorse P. Diddy. That's crazy.
No, I'm not endorsing anyone. I'm just reporting.
It was like you built, man. You that dude, man. I can honestly say that about you. I've been following you since you got out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I'm reporting. I got to give it fair and impartial. You know, I can't pick a side. I just show both sides.
Well, if you see somebody like P. Diddy in the feds, you wouldn't even mess with him. He's from New York.
Nah, he would if somebody came in the feds with what P. Diddy got, he would have got ran off the yard, poked up, and all that. So he wouldn't even have survived.
That's all I wanted to hear, man.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to hear.
Anybody coming in with them type of charge getting poked up. All right. Where you calling from?
I'm calling from the CLE.
All right. What's up?
I was just calling to say hi, and I have been watching your channel for a couple of days.
Okay, you enjoying it?
Pretty good.
All right.
Pretty good.
All right. Thank you.
I don't really have much to say. I'm just calling from this.
All right.
But I got a friend here that he want to say what's up to you. Shout out to you.
All right. What's up, homie?
Hey, what's up with your brother? I watch your channel all the time, man.
All right.
On how you did the 26, how you did your time, the 26 years and everything. And one thing I love about you, man, you didn't rat and you didn't snitch and you did your Hey, I don't know why they don't beat you up more often, man, because you one of the guys that didn't rat and didn't snitch, man, just out here on YouTube for them to be bigging up all these dudes instead of that whack ass one, that whack 100 dude, man. Shit. But as far as the Diddy trial, man, I wanted to say, man, I don't feel that he did everything, but like most people might think, I feel he didn't do everything they said he did, man. And he didn't, and I also believe with somebody else said, like what Dr. Umar said, that there's no way in hell he'd have been on top this long and didn't do no good to anybody. He helped somebody out.
Word.
You can't be on top this long and then help nobody out.
Yeah. All right, thanks, yo. We'll take this other call. Where you calling from? What's your name?
It's Eric out of Atlanta, Georgia.
What up, family?
What up, fam? First of all, I want to say I salute you, Unique. I've been watching you from the beginning. Proud of you. Love all the knowledge that you spit. And my question is, how is it even legal for someone to, even the government, if you look at the Big U case right now, they put out stuff to the media, things that was in the wiretaps. How can any person get a fair jury when the federal government even uses the media against people?
Good point. Somebody call in, respond to that, put in the comment. Very good point. All right.
All right.
Good looking, family. Hey, y'all, that was a very good point. Y'all put in the comments. See, we get real intelligent people, man. We get real intelligent people up here. Yeah, you know what? We need to get these likes up because I'm falling asleep because it's like I'm not getting the likes. Everything's not moving. I mean, it's like y'all not enjoying it, but y'all here. Let's go. All right. So now we got this thing rolling. Ooh, Genie, let's go. All right.
Put aside the fact that you're dealing with the celebrity factor and a lot of eyeballs are on it, and maybe a lot of pressure for this verdict and 8 weeks, the hardship this might have. This is a complicated legal case. So when I heard a potential juror to say today, I don't really understand why it's the United States versus Sean Combs, as opposed to maybe a private individual going after Sean Combs.
Hey, yo, let me explain that one to you, right? I'm going to take a ride and let you know about this one, right? When I first got locked up, I got 12 co-defendants on there, and I only know 3 of them. I'm going to trial for working with 9 dudes that I don't even know. And the indictment said United States, meaning all 52 states, against Unique Mecca Audio. I said, what did I do to Kentucky? I never even been to Kentucky. What did I do to Memphis? I've never been to Memphis. Never been to so many, Minnesota. But it was United States every step. I mean, they threw the whole book at me. So that's why I tell the youth that it's not worth it, man, because when they come in hard. You might get away today, but tomorrow they will bag you. When they bag you, then we'll see what you made of. And then you would say, I should have listened to Unique Mecca Audio. All right.
That's a little concerning. Now, we cover legal cases all the time. It might seem second place to us, but even reading the indictment, when I go through the specifics of racketeering or the specifics of sex trafficking, it's very complicated. That might work to the benefit of the defense. Maybe it works to the benefit of the prosecution. We shall see. But I'm very curious to see if you can have jurors who will actually fully, and this is not a slight on any potential jurors. It's just, this is a complicated case. And I wonder if they're going to be able to fully grasp and recognize and understand what the elements are of these crimes and what they're supposed to do. It's not an easy case, which brings me to my final question before I let you go, Elizabeth. From the best you could see, did the jurors, the prospective jurors, did they look nervous? Did they seem nervous? Did they seem concerned about being there, being a part of such a monumental case?
Not really, which is kind of surprising in the sense because when the jurors were kind of brought in and they were all brought in together, some were in the gallery, some were actually in the jury box, Diddy and his defense team are facing all of them, which to me, I would feel a little intimidated by. But to me, a lot of these jurors just looked at Diddy as if he was just any other person who possibly or who is going to be facing these types of criminal charges. Now, whether or not inside their minds, they're like, oh my God, that's Diddy. That's unclear. Obviously, I can't get inside all of these prospective jurors' minds or anything like that. But there was no noticeable reaction from what I saw. Now, I was kind of in the back on the right-hand side of the courtroom and that sort. But I feel like the jurors were more kind of conflicted just about having to spend what could be 2 months on this jury. Yep. I think they were more kind of pressed about that than actually who the defendant was. So from what I could tell, everyone seemed up to the task, or if they weren't up to the task, they were very vocal about that. But as far as just kind of, this possible wow factor or this celebrity factor by seeing Diddy inside the courtroom, nothing that I could tell from being inside there. But who knows, maybe inside their minds, they were thinking something completely different. But again, as far as what I could tell, I feel like a lot of jurors were more kind of worried about the time length of this trial as opposed to who the superstar defendant is.
Elizabeth Milner, great reporting as always on what is sure to be a memorable case. It is one of the most significant, memorable criminal trials that we have covered here on Law and Crime. And thank you so much for being our eyes and our ears in that courtroom, because unfortunately we don't have cameras, and I could do a whole sidebar episode on how much I hate that. But thank you so much. Great reporting. And I know it's been raining today, so I'm happy.
All right. So it's raining, right? So y'all call in if you want to call in. So that's what's going on. They starting the jury selection. The Diddy trial, that move is moving forward. So therefore, we're going to see what's going on and where it's going. Hit them like buttons before you go out. Please hit them like buttons. Let's keep it moving. I appreciate y'all coming. See y'all tomorrow night. I'm going to do the nightly live, so you can look for me at night around 8 o'clock. All right, let's go.